Now, coins of Liberia made in the U.S. Well, it first starts in 1941, the beginning of the World War I era. Another country had made these same 3 coins for Liberia in 1937, and it's generally conceded they were made out of brass. Here's the half-cent, 1/2 cent. High-grade copies of this are common as muck. Here's the 1 cent. In this case, copies of this at all seem to be very difficult to come by, and I feel particularly fortunate to come across such a beautiful specimen here. And finally, there is the 2 cent. We made these. Now, they're said that they're made of copper nickel, just like a regular nickel, but invariably these have a yellowish tint to them, much like the ones that were made elsewhere in 1937. So I'm inclined to suspect that they've been actually something more of a nickel brass, because they're always consistently yellow in comparison to, well, let's just compare one to, say, a nickel brass here. Just look at the 2 different colors. See how very obviously yellow that is in comparison to a copper nickel coin that will come later on. So, that said, we move on to 1960, when again we start making coins for Liberia. So there's a 1 cent. Now all these look very similar to ours, except they're actually a little bit smaller than ours, all of them. But they have the same basic metallic. There's a regular cent. Well, no tin, just zinc. But other than that, it's like the American cent. There's a nickel. Standard nickel, except again a little smaller than the American nickel. It's got an elephant on it. In those days we had silver, so did they. That's a silver 10-cent piece of 1960, and a silver 25 cent, also 1960, and finally a silver 50 cent. Also 1960. And continuing, 1961, we did this again. Okay, and then again, nickel. So it looks like a nice regular American nickel. It's a little bit smaller and it's got an elephant on it. Again, a silver 10-cent piece. We didn't put any mint mark on these. 25 cent. Okay. 50 cent. And also even $1. Finally, 62, we made another $1. Supposedly these were actually struck in late 1961, but they were meant for the year 1962, so that's how that works. Now we don't start making coins again until about 68 or 69. Now this proof set was actually struck in 69, but we did make coins in 1968. But now an interesting thing happens. As you can see, even though all these denominations from the 1 cent to the dollar are represented in proof, there's only a single coin that's made here as a business strike. In 1969, it's all proofs. In 1970, again, all these proofs, but then just 2 denominations are made as ordinary circulation coins. So it's kind of odd that this should happen, but this is how it goes. So we look here. Now these coins were, however, many of these coins were struck as business strikes, but not in America, except for this one. So we have, for example, a business strike for the 1 cent of 1968. This, I believe, has been struck in the London Mint. There's also a 1968. This is actually restrike. It looks a little bit different. And in fact, there's a way you can tell it's not the same. but we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so 5 cent exists only as a US made proof coin, 1968. Same for 10 cent for 1968. There's the dime. There's the back, 10 cents. Now the 25 cent, really, this is the proof. You can tell not only from the shiny look at it, but also from the placement of the devices. Now here is the one made in the Denver Mint in 1968 for Liberia. This seems to be a very difficult coin to find in a reasonable grade because they were almost all put in circulation. And again, collectors had the proof set. What did they want with a circulation coin, especially when it's all by its lonesome? Now I leave this inverted here to compare against this other one because you can actually see a very important difference. In this one, you notice how the C kind of falls between these leaves. That is also the case here. The original one's from 1968. But this one, see how the C lines up with the leaf? That tells you that it is the restrike, and the restrike is not made in a U.S. mint. So that's something to know. And by the way, that same configuration was before. See, it's 1961. The C falls between the two leaves. And the same goes for 1960 as well. So that's kind of an interesting thing to know. Now you can tell real American-made Liberian coin. The proof set, of course, was made in San Francisco, but the business strike in this case was struck in the Denver Mint. Okay, now here's a proof for 50 cent. And a proof for the dollar. Now 69. Oh, and also made out, there are business strikes of the 50 cent and the dollar for that year. These were also not struck in the U.S. My suspicion is that these were struck probably at London. Focus. There we go. So, but those are not American coins. It's just interesting to know the distinction there. Okay. So, 69. All there is the proof set. There we go. And there's the penny. There's the nickel. There's the dime. There's the quarter. There's the $50. 50 cents. And there's the dollar. Of course, these Liberian proofs are fairly common and easy to find. And then 1970, and that's going to be as far as I take this. Okay, again, there's the proof penny. Proof of 5 cents. The proof 10 cents. But there was also in Denver a circulation strike. Look at that. Which is, again, interesting to try to find in a reasonable grade. Okay, there's a 25 cent. Well, there's a proof. 50 cent. Well, there's a proof. And a dollar. Well, there's a proof. Well, no, the dollar exists also as a business strike. Well, we'll continue that in the next part.